I still remember the warmth of my adoptive mother's hands the day she found me wandering near the Han River. I was 4 years old, dirty and alone, clutching a torn blanket that smelled of smoke and loss. Kim Soo-jin knelt before me, her eyes glistening with tears, and promised me a home. "You're safe now, Ryan," she whispered, smoothing my matted hair. "We'll love you forever." For one precious year I believed her. My adoptive father, Kim Tae-hyun, treated me like a prince. He taught me to read, bought me books about stars and distant galaxies, and told me I could be anything I wanted. Their modest apartment became my sanctuary, filled with laughter and the smell of my mother's cooking. Then Kim Lehman was born. I was 5 when I first held my baby brother, this tiny Omega child with perfect rosebud lips and delicate features. I loved him instantly, fiercely, the way only a lonely child who'd finally found family could love. "You're a big brother now, Ryan," my father said, but his voice had changed. There was a distance in it I couldn't name. The transformation wasn't immediate. It was gradual, like watching flowers wilt in slow motion. First, my bedtime story stopped. Then my mother's warm embraces became perfunctory pats. By the time I was 10 and Lehman was 5, I had become invisible in my own home, or worse, a burden they'd once foolishly taken on. "Ryan, why haven't you done the dishes?" my mother would snap while Lehman sat at the table being hand-fed his favorite foods. "Ryan, your brother needs new clothes for school. You can wear last year's uniform," my father would say, not meeting my eyes. I told myself it was because Lehman was their biological son. I told myself it was because he was an Omega, rare and precious in our society. I told myself it didn't hurt. I lied. I presented as an alpha when I turned 16. I still remember the moment, the surge of hormones, the way my senses sharpened, the musky scent that began emanating from my glands. I thought, stupidly, that this might change things. Alphas were valued, respected, powerful. But my father only looked at me with thinly veiled disappointment. "Your pheromones are weak," he said bluntly over dinner that night, while Lehman, who'd presented as an Omega at 15, sat beside him, bathed in their adoration. "I can barely smell them. What kind of alpha are you?" I clenched my fists under the table, nails biting into my palms. "I'm still developing," the doctor said. "The doctor said you're at the lower end of alpha strength," my mother interrupted, her voice cold. "Barely stronger than a beta. How embarrassing." Lehman said nothing, but I caught the small, satisfied smile playing at his lips. That's when I understood, I would never be enough for them. Not because I was adopted, not because I was flawed, but because I wasn't him. The years that followed were a special kind of hell. I worked 3 part-time jobs to pay for my own university education while my parents poured money into Lehman's prestigious private academy. I came home to cold leftovers while elaborate meals were prepared for my brother's delicate Omega constitution. I slept in the smallest room, barely bigger than a closet, while Lehman's bedroom was expanded, redecorated, perfected. "You should be grateful we took you in," my father told me once, when I was 22 and had dared to ask why I wasn't invited to Lehman's birthday celebration at an expensive restaurant. "We didn't have to keep you after Lehman was born. Remember that." I remembered. God, how I remembered. By the time I turned 25 and Lehman 20, I had become a ghost in my own family, a convenient scapegoat for their failures, a shadow that made their golden sun shine brighter. Then they decided to marry us off. "You're getting married," my father announced one evening, not looking up from his newspaper. I froze in the doorway, my work bag still slung over my shoulder. "What?" "Both of you," my mother added, smiling at Lehman, who sat curled on the sofa, beautiful and fragile in a cashmere sweater that cost more than my monthly salary. "We've arranged very suitable matches." Lehman's eyes lit up. "Really, Mother?" "Who?" "The Park family," she said, practically glowing with pride. "Park Jae-sung, heir to Park Industries. Wealthy, powerful, a strong alpha. Everything you deserve, my precious son." My brother preened, already envisioning his fairy tale future. "And me?" I asked quietly, though dread had already begun pooling in my stomach. My father finally looked at me, and something in his expression made my blood run cold. "The Choi family has agreed to take you." "The Choi family?" I knew them vaguely, old money, traditional, respectable but not flashy. "Yes." My mother's smile turned sharp. "You'll be marrying Choi Min-jun." I frowned. "I've never heard of." "He died 3 days ago," my father said flatly. "Car accident. The family still wants the marriage to proceed. You'll be married to him posthumously and live as his widowed husband on their estate. It's quite generous, actually, considering our financial situation." The room tilted. "You're marrying me to a dead man?" The words came out strangled, disbelieving. "The Choi family is paying off our debts," my father said coldly. 300 million won. We're drowning, Ryan, and this is the solution. Be grateful they're willing to take you at all. We owe them money because of your gambling. I shouted, something inside me finally cracking. You and Mother's shopping addiction, the money you threw away on Lehman's luxury. My father stood abruptly, his face reddening. You will do this or you will leave this house tonight with nothing. Do you understand me? Lehman watched the scene with detached amusement, like it was a drama on television. I looked between them, these people who'd promised to love me, to be my family, and saw only strangers. Strangers who were selling me like property to cover their mistakes. Fine, I whispered. I'll do it. What choice did I have? I had no money, no family beyond this toxic household, nowhere to go. At least the Choi family estate would give me a roof over my head. At least the dead couldn't hurt me worse than the living already had. The double wedding was scheduled for the same day, a cruel irony that wasn't lost on me. Lehman's ceremony was held at the Grand Hyatt, a spectacle of white roses and crystal chandeliers, 500 guests in designer clothes sipping champagne. I watched from the family table as my brother glowed in traditional white silk, Park Jae-sung beside him, tall and commanding and clearly besotted with his beautiful Omega bride. My parents wept with joy. My own ceremony was held that evening at the Choi family estate, a traditional Hanok house in northern Seoul. There were perhaps 20 people in attendance, mostly Choi family members dressed in mourning white, their faces somber. I wore white too, but mine was the white of death, not celebration. The ceremony was surreal. I bowed to a memorial photograph of Choi Min-jun, a handsome man in his late 20s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. In another life I might have liked him. In this one, I was binding myself to his memory, to a ghost, to a grave I'd be expected to tend for the rest of my life. Before we dive into this heartwarming, emotional, slow burn romance Omegaverse story, note, this is an original work of Milliflex channel. If seen in another channel that is not Milliflex, please report that channel for copyright and impersonation. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. I'm sorry, I whispered to his photograph as I performed the ancestral rites. You deserved better than this. We both did. Choi Min-jun's mother, Lady Choi Sun-hee, approached me after the ceremony. She was elegant despite her grief, her eyes red-rimmed but kind. You must be confused and frightened, she said softly, taking my hands in hers. I want you to know, this wasn't my first choice. But my husband. She glanced at the stern patriarch across the room. He believes in tradition. A marriage was arranged. A marriage must happen. Even if my son can't. Her voice broke. I understand, I said, though I didn't, not really. The estate is yours now, she continued. My husband has decided the inheritance should pass to you as Min-jun's spouse. He wants someone to maintain the family legacy. She squeezed my hands. I know you didn't choose this. But please be kind to my son's memory. That's all I ask. I nodded, too numb to fully process what she was saying. That night, I was shown to a beautiful room in the family's private quarters. Not Min-jun's room, that remained locked, a shrine to their lost son, but a guest room that was larger and more luxurious than anywhere I'd ever lived. I sat on the bed, still in my ceremonial clothes, and finally let myself cry. The next 6 months were strange and quiet. The Choi family kept to themselves, processing their grief in private ways. Lady Sun-hee was kind to me, sometimes sitting with me for tea and telling me stories about Min-jun, his love of music, his charity work, his gentle nature. I grew to mourn a man I'd never known, to regret a future we'd never have. Lord Choi Dae-young was distant but not cruel. He'd made his decision about the inheritance and stuck to it with rigid traditionalism. As Min-jun's legal spouse, I inherited the estate management, several business investments, and a substantial trust fund. You will maintain the Choi name with dignity, he told me during one of our few conversations. That is your duty now. I took that duty seriously. I threw myself into learning about the estate's operations, the family businesses, the charitable foundations Min-jun had supported. I discovered I had a mind for organization and finance, skills I'd developed working multiple jobs to survive my adoptive family's neglect. Within 3 months, I'd restructured several failing investments and increased the estate's revenue by 15%. Within 6 months, I'd expanded Min-jun's music scholarship program and established a new foundation for orphan children. Lord Choi began looking at me with something that might have been respect. Lady Sun-hee began calling me son. And the Seoul elite social circles began to notice the young alpha who'd married into the Choi family and was managing their considerable wealth with unexpected skill and grace. I was invited to charity galas, business conferences, social teas with other high society families. People whispered about me, the devoted widow, the unexpected heir, the alpha with a gentle heart. For the first time in my life I felt valued. My adoptive family never called. Not once. I told myself I didn't care. The news came on a cold November evening, 8 months after our respective weddings. I was reviewing financial reports in my study when my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Ryan? My mother's voice, sharp with panic. It's Lehman. Park Jae-sung is dead. I went cold. What? Heart attack. Last night. He just collapsed. Dead at 28, can you imagine? She sounded more annoyed than grieving. And now Lehman is a widow. Widower, I corrected automatically. Lehman is male. Whatever. This is a disaster, Ryan. The Park family is being awful about everything. They're saying Lehman caused stress, that his Omega demands were too much. I hung up. I sat there for a long moment processing. Then, because I was apparently a glutton for punishment, I called Lehman directly. He answered on the first ring, his voice thick with tears. Ryan? I heard. I'm sorry. A bitter laugh. Are you? You who got the better deal in the end. I blinked. Lehman, I married a dead man. You had 8 months with someone who loved you. And now I have nothing, he screamed. The Parks took everything. The house, the money, all of it. They said the prenup gives me nothing because we weren't married long enough. I'm back with mother and father, and they're furious because they spent so much on the wedding and now there's no return on their investment. Do you understand? I'm worthless to them now. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. I'm sorry, I said again and meant it. Whatever Lehman had become, whatever role he played in my suffering, he was still my brother in some broken way. Don't be sorry, he hissed. Be useful. You have money now, don't you? The Choi inheritance? Help me. Help you. Give me money. Get me out of here. I can't stay with them, Ryan, I can't. They look at me like I'm garbage like you used to be. No, I said quietly. Silence. What? I said no, Lehman. I'm sorry you're suffering. But I won't enable our parents' toxicity anymore, and I won't let you use me the way they did. You bastard. His voice turned vicious. After everything we gave you. You gave me nothing, I said, surprised by how calm I felt. But I forgive you anyway. Goodbye, Lehman. I hung up and blocked the number. It was the first boundary I'd ever set with my adoptive family. It felt like freedom. Over the next 4 months, I heard occasional updates through Seoul's gossip networks. Lehman was struggling. His beauty remained, but something had broken in him. The loss of status, the taste of worthlessness he'd once watched me endure. He became erratic, showing up at high society events uninvited, making scenes, desperately trying to secure another wealthy alpha match. But the whispers followed him. Unstable Omega, bad luck, probably caused Park's death with his demands. My parents, drowning in debt again without the Park family fortune to bail them out, grew bitter and desperate. They sold their apartment, moved to a tiny flat in a bad neighborhood, and blamed everyone but themselves. They blamed me especially, I learned. Ryan has money now and won't help his own family, my mother apparently told anyone who'd listen. So ungrateful after everything we did for him. I ignored it all. I had built a new life, a good life. I continued managing the Choi estate, expanding Minjun's charitable legacy, earning genuine respect in business circles. Lady Sun, he had become like a real mother to me, Lord Choi a stern but fair father figure. I visited Minjun's grave every week, bringing flowers and talking to him about my life. I think you would have liked what I'm doing, I told his headstone one spring afternoon. I think we could have been friends in another world. The cherry blossoms fell around me like snow. I felt almost content. Then Lehman tried to kill me. It happened on a Thursday evening in March. I was leaving a business dinner in Gangnam, walking to my car parked in a quiet side street. I heard footsteps behind me, too fast, too purposeful. I turned just as Lehman lunged at me, a knife glinting in his hand. It should have been you, he screamed, his beautiful face twisted with madness. You should have died, not Jae-sung. You should have stayed garbage and I should have had everything. I caught his wrist, my alpha strength finally useful, but he was wild with grief and rage. We struggled, crashing against parked cars. Lehman, stop. I'll kill you and take your money. Mother and father will love me again. I'll be their precious son again. The knife slashed toward my throat. Then suddenly Lehman was flying backward, thrown by an invisible force. He hit the ground hard, the knife skittering away. I looked up, gasping, and saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features and eyes like midnight. His pheromones hit me like a physical wave, strong, commanding, unmistakably alpha. He wore an expensive suit and an expression of cold fury as he looked down at Lehman. Attacking someone in public, the stranger said, his voice deep and controlled. How foolish. Lehman scrambled backward, terror replacing rage. I didn't. Security, the man called, and suddenly there were bodyguards appearing from a sleek black car. Take this Omega to the police. Attempted murder, multiple witnesses. He gestured to the restaurant across the street where people were filming on their phones. As Lehman was dragged away, still screaming threats and justifications, the stranger turned to me. Are you hurt? I shook my head, still trying to catch my breath. I'm fine. Thank you. Who? Kwon Ji-won, he said, extending a hand. CEO of Kwon Industries. My eyes widened. Everyone knew that name. Kwon Industries was the largest conglomerate in Seoul. Tech, real estate, entertainment, everything. And Kwon Ji-won was legendary, brilliant, ruthless, and notoriously private. The media called him the Ice King. I took his hand, feeling the strength in his grip. Kim Ryan. Thank you for saving my life. Kim Ryan. He studied me with unsettling intensity. The Choi family's heir. I've heard of you. Your restructuring of their investment portfolio was impressive. You know my work? A small smile touched his lips. I make it my business to know promising people in Seoul's business world. He glanced at the police cars arriving. You'll need to give a statement. Then, if you're amenable, I'd like to take you for coffee. I find myself curious about the alpha who married a ghost and built an empire from grief. I should have been offended by the blunt assessment. Instead, I laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. Coffee sounds perfect, I said. We went to a quiet cafe Ji-won apparently owned, closed to the public for the evening. He ordered for both of us without asking. Somehow knowing I preferred Americano to the sweet drinks most Omegas assumed all alphas disdained. You're not what I expected, I admitted, warming my hands on the cup. Neither are you. He leaned back, studying me. I expected someone broken. The stories about your marriage, your family, they paint a picture of a victim. But you're not that, are you? I said honestly. For a long time I let them make me small. But Minjun's family gave me space to grow. To become who I was supposed to be. And who is that? I'm still figuring it out. Ji-won smiled, a real smile this time, warm and transformative. I'd like to watch you figure it out if you'll let me. Something fluttered in my chest. We just met. Yes. And I've never believed in love at first sight or fate or any of that romantic nonsense. His dark eyes held mine. But I believe in recognizing when someone might be important. You feel important, Kim Ryan. My breath caught. We talked for hours. About business, about family, about the loneliness of being alpha in a world that expected us to be strong and solitary. Ji-won told me about building his empire from almost nothing, about losing his parents young, about the isolation of success. I told him about Minjun, about the strange grief of mourning someone I never knew, about my adoptive family's cruelty and my slow healing. They don't deserve your forgiveness, Ji-won said quietly. Maybe not, but I'm not forgiving them for them. I'm doing it for me so I can move forward. Wise. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. Have dinner with me tomorrow. A real date, not trauma bonding over attempted murder. I laughed again. That's a low bar. I promised to exceed it. I should have been cautious. Should have protected my healing heart. Should have remembered that love had only ever hurt me. But when Ji-won smiled at me, I felt brave. Yes, I said. I'd like that. Dating Ji-won was like learning to breathe in a new way. He was attentive but not smothering, generous but not patronizing, strong but never domineering. He took me to galleries and concerts, quiet restaurants and rooftop gardens. He listened when I talked about expanding Minjun's foundations, offered business advice without condescension, and made me laugh with dry observations about Seoul's elite society. They're terrified of you, I told him one evening after a charity gala where people had practically bowed as we passed. Good, he said simply. Fear keeps people honest. Does it keep me honest? He pulled me closer as we slow danced, his hand warm on my waist. You don't need fear for that. You're honest by nature, Ryan. It's one of the things He paused, something vulnerable flickering in his expression. One of the things I admire most about you. My heart hammered. What were you going to say? That it's one of the things I love about you. He said it quietly, certainly like stating a fact. I love you, Kim Ryan. I've loved you since that night I saw you refuse to be a victim, refuse to let your brother's madness break you. Tears pricked my eyes. Ji-won. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. But I did say it back there on that dance floor with Seoul's elite watching and whispering around us. I love you too, I whispered against his shoulder. I love you and it terrifies me because everyone I've ever loved has hurt me. Then I'll be the first who doesn't, he promised. And he was. Our relationship deepened, became physical in ways that left me breathless. Ji-won was a passionate lover, attentive and demanding in equal measure. The first time he took me to bed, I was nervous. I'd never been with anyone, had never let myself be that vulnerable. "We'll go slow," he murmured, kissing down my throat, his hands gentle despite the clear desire in his dark eyes. "Tell me if anything is too much." But nothing was too much. His touch ignited something in me I hadn't known existed. When he prepared me with careful fingers, stretching me slowly while whispering praise, I thought I might shatter from sensation alone. "Please," I gasped, my body aching with need. "Ji-won, please." "I've got you," he breathed, and when he finally pressed his length into me, filling me completely, I cried out at the intensity of it, the pleasure edged with sweet pain, the overwhelming intimacy of being joined with someone I loved. He moved slowly at first, letting me adjust, his forehead pressed to mine. "God, Ryan, you feel incredible. So perfect." "More?" I begged, clutching his shoulders. "I need more." He gave me more, deep, powerful thrusts that had me moaning his name, my nails raking down his back. The pleasure built and built until I came apart in his arms, my release spilling between us as he followed with a groan, his length pulsing inside me. Afterward he held me close, our hearts racing in tandem. "Mine?" he whispered against my hair. "You're mine, Ryan." "Yours," I agreed and meant it. News of our relationship spread like wildfire through Seoul's elite circles. The gossip blogs went insane. Ice King Kwon Ji-won dating the Choi heir. Seoul's most eligible alpha off the market. Business titans in romance. Most responses were positive. We were seen as a power couple, two successful alphas finding partnership. But there were whispers too, particularly from more traditional circles. Two alphas together? It's unnatural, some older businessmen muttered at meetings. What about heirs? What about tradition? Society matrons clutched their pearls. A particularly vicious blogger, someone called Soul Truth, started posting critiques of our relationship, calling it a mockery of natural alpha-omega pairings, and suggesting Ji-won was confused and would eventually return to appropriate partner choices. I tried to ignore it, but the words stung. "They're idiots," Ji-won said flatly when I mentioned it over breakfast one morning. We were at his penthouse, tangled in his sheets, the morning sun painting everything gold. "Their opinions mean nothing. But what if they're right? What if you eventually want?" He silenced me with a kiss, deep and claiming. When he pulled back, his eyes were fierce. "Listen to me, Kim Ryan. I don't care what biology or society or ancient traditions say. I don't want an omega. I don't want someone delicate and submissive who'll defer to me in everything. I want you, strong, intelligent, stubborn you. I want an equal partner, not a subordinate. Do you understand?" "Yes," I whispered. "Good. Now, as for Soul Truth and their nonsense." He smiled, sharp and dangerous. "I think it's time I made a public statement." That afternoon, Ji-won called a press conference at Kwon Industries headquarters. Every major media outlet attended, cameras flashing as he took the podium. "I've called you here to address recent speculation about my personal life," he began, his voice carrying authority. "Yes, I am in a relationship with Kim Ryan. Yes, we are both alphas. And no, I don't care what anyone thinks about it." The room buzzed with whispers. Love is love, regardless of designation. My relationship with Ryan is genuine, deep, and real. He is my partner in every sense, in business, in life, in heart. Anyone who has a problem with that is welcome to take it up with me directly. His smile turned cold. "Though I should warn you, I don't lose arguments." A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Kwon, what about the traditional expectations? What about heirs?" "There are many ways to build a family," Ji-won said calmly. "Adoption, surrogacy, fostering. Love makes a family, not biology." Next question. Another reporter, "Mr. Kwon, the blogger Soul Truth has been particularly critical." "Soul Truth is an anonymous coward hiding behind a screen," Ji-won interrupted, his voice hardening. "If they had real concerns, they'd voice them publicly. Instead, they spread hate and intolerance. Let me be clear. I will use every legal resource at my disposal to identify and prosecute anyone who continues to harass or defame me or my partner. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The room fell silent. "Any other questions?" Ji-won asked pleasantly. No one spoke. That night, Soul Truth's blog mysteriously went offline. Permanently. I curled into Ji-won's arms on his couch, overwhelmed. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He kissed my temple. "No one gets to hurt you. Not anymore." Lee Min had been released from jail after my adoptive parents paid his bail and I refused to press charges. It was a decision I regretted when, 3 months after Ji-won's press conference, my brother made his move. Lady Sun, he called me, her voice shaking. Ryan, you need to come home. No. It's urgent. I arrived at the Choi estate to find police cars and reporters everywhere. My heart sank. What happened? That Omega, your brother, he broke into the estate, Lord Choi said, his face red with fury. He stole items from Minjun's room, vandalized property, and is now claiming to reporters that the Choi family inheritance is illegitimate, that you manipulated us. I found Lee Min on the front lawn, surrounded by cameras, his face wild with manic glee. And this man, this weak alpha, used dark manipulation on this grieving family, he was saying. The inheritance should be returned. He's a fraud. Lee Min, I said quietly. He whirled on me. There you are. The great Kim Ryan, living in luxury while his family starves. You're not starving. Our parents are suffering because of you. He was screaming now, completely unhinged. You took everything. Everything was supposed to be mine. Ji-won's car pulled up then and he emerged like an avenging angel, his security team flanking him. Kim Lee Min, he said coldly. You're trespassing and vandalizing private property. You're also violating the restraining order filed after your attempted murder of Kim Ryan. Officers. He nodded to the police. No. No, you can't, Ryan. Lee Min looked at me and for a moment, I saw the little boy he'd once been, before our parents poisoned him with entitlement and cruelty. Please, Ryan. I'm your brother. Help me. I felt Ji-won's hand find mine, grounding me. You're not my brother, I said softly. You never were. A brother doesn't try to destroy the people he's supposed to love. I forgive you, Lee Min, but I won't save you from the consequences of your actions. Goodbye. As police led him away, I felt something break and heal simultaneously in my chest. Ji-won pulled me close. Are you all right? Yes, I said and realized it was true. I really am. The scandal blew over surprisingly quickly once the truth emerged. Lady Sun, he gave a passionate interview about how I'd honored Minjun's memory, improved the family estate, and earned my place in their family through merit and character. My adoptive parents tried to give their own interview claiming victimhood, but no one cared. They faded back into obscurity, bitter and alone. Lee Min was sentenced to 2 years in prison for burglary, vandalism, and violating the restraining order. I felt nothing but pity for all of them. 6 months later, on a perfect spring evening, Ji-won took me to the rooftop garden of Kwon Industries headquarters. The city sparkled below us and cherry blossoms drifted on the breeze. I have something to ask you, he said, his usual confidence touched with nervousness. My heart raced. Ji-won. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Inside were 2 matching platinum bands, simple and elegant. Kim Ryan, you walked into my life during your darkest moment and brought light I didn't know I needed. You're my partner, my equal, my home. I love you more than I thought I could love anyone. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down my face. Yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He stood, slipping the ring on my finger and kissing me deeply as cherry blossoms fell around us like blessings. We were married 3 months later, a small ceremony attended by people who actually loved us. Lady Sun Hee and Lord Choi walked me down the aisle, my real family. Ji-won's business partners and friends filled the seats, celebrating 2 alphas choosing each other, choosing love over tradition. When we said our vows, I finally understood what family was supposed to feel like. I love you, I whispered as we kissed to seal our marriage. I love you too, Ji-won murmured back. My husband. That night, in the honeymoon suite he'd reserved, we came together with a passion that felt brand new despite our familiarity. He undressed me slowly, reverently, pressing kisses to every inch of skin revealed. Mine, he breathed against my throat and I shivered. Yours, I agreed, reaching for him. We made love slowly this time, savoring every touch, every kiss. When he entered me, I gasped at the perfection of it, how completely he filled me, how right it felt to be joined with him. I love you, he whispered with each thrust, his forehead pressed to mine. I love you, Ryan. Love you, I managed, overwhelmed by pleasure and emotion. Love you so much. We climaxed together, my length spilling between us as his pulse deep inside me, and in that moment I felt more whole than I ever had. Afterward, tangled together in sheets that smelled like us, I traced patterns on his chest. Happy? He asked softly. More than I ever thought possible, I admitted. A year into our marriage we started talking about children. I want a family with you, Ji-won said one evening, his hand resting on my stomach in an unconsciously tender gesture. A real family. The kind we both should have had. We explored options, surrogacy, adoption. In the end, we chose to adopt, wanting to give children the home we'd both been denied. The adoption process took months, but finally, we were matched with twin infants. A boy and a girl, abandoned at a hospital, perfect and tiny in ours. Kim Ji-hoon, I whispered, holding our son for the first time. His eyes were dark and serious, already alert. Kim Min-seo, Ji-won murmured, cradling our daughter, who yawned and nestled into his chest. We brought them home to a nursery painted soft yellow, filled with toys and books and love. Lady Sun-hee visited constantly, delighting in her grandchildren. Lord Choi softened further, teaching Ji-hoon about family honor while being gentle as snowfall. Watching Ji-won with our children broke and remade my heart daily. He was patient, loving, devoted. Everything his own father hadn't been, everything he'd had to teach himself. One night, I found him in the nursery holding both sleeping babies, tears on his face. Ji-won? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, he whispered. Everything's right. I never thought I'd have this. A family. Well, you. I kissed him softly. We made this together. Our family. Our family, he agreed. I stand on the balcony of our home, watching Ji-hoon and Min-seo play in the garden below. They're 5 now, bright and happy and loved beyond measure. Ji-won joins me, sliding his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? Everything, I admit. How far we've come. How different life could have been. Regrets. Not one. I turn in his arms, meeting his dark eyes. Every terrible thing led me to you. To this. I'd do it all again. He kisses me, slow and sweet and full of promise. I love you, Kim Ryan. I love you too, Kwon Ji-won. Our children's laughter drifts up to us, the sound of pure joy. Inside, our home is filled with pictures. Our wedding, the twins' adoption day, family vacations, ordinary moments made extraordinary by love. There are no photographs of my adoptive family. That chapter is closed, forgiven but not forgotten. Lady Sun-hee visits tomorrow with Lord Choi, excited to take the twins to a museum. Our family chosen and real. Ready to go inside? Ji-won asks, his hand finding mine. Yes, I say, and let him lead me home. Because that's what this is, finally, truly, home. Not a place I'm tolerated or a role I'm forced into, but a life I built with my own hands and the man who chose to build it with me. The boy who was abandoned at 4, rejected by those who claimed to love him, married to a ghost and expected to disappear. That boy became a man who found real love, real family, real worth. And he lived, truly lived, happily ever after. The twins are finally asleep after their bedtime story marathon. Ji-hoon insisted on 3 books tonight, and Min-seo wouldn't settle until her father sang her favorite lullaby twice. I smile, listening to Ji-won's deep voice drift down the hallway as he finishes the last verse. I'm in our bedroom, the soft lamplight casting warm shadows across the space we've made ours over these 5 years. Outside, Seoul glitters in the distance, but here, everything is quiet and peaceful. Ji-won enters, closing the door softly behind him. He's still in his work shirt, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded somewhere between the office and home. His dark hair is slightly mussed from Min-seo's grabbing hands, and there's a tenderness in his expression that makes my heart skip. They're out, he says, moving toward me. Finally. You're so good with them, I tell him, reaching out to take his hand as he sits beside me on the bed. We're good with them, he corrects, bringing my hand to his lips. His kiss is gentle against my knuckles, his eyes never leaving mine. Together. The word hangs between us, heavy with meaning and promise. Come here, I whisper, pulling him closer. He shifts, framing my face with his hands, thumbs stroking my cheekbones with infinite care. I love you, he murmurs like it's both prayer and promise. Show me, I breathe. His kiss is slow, deliberate, tasting of the tea he drank after dinner and something uniquely him. I open to him, our mouths moving together with the ease of years and the excitement of newness that somehow never fades. His tongue traces my lower lip before delving deeper, and I sigh into it, my hands sliding up to tangle in his hair. We've done this 1,000 times, but it never becomes routine. Every touch feels like discovery. Ji-won eases me back against the pillows, his weight a welcome pressure as he settles over me. His lips trail from my mouth to my jaw, down to that sensitive spot below my ear that makes me shiver. Still sensitive here, he murmurs with satisfaction, his breath hot against my skin. You know all my secrets, I manage, tilting my head to give him better access. And I treasure every one. His hands move to my shirt, fingers working the buttons with practiced ease. He parts the fabric slowly, pressing kisses to each new inch of skin revealed. My collarbone, the center of my chest, the sensitive skin over my ribs. Ji-won, I breathe, my own hands working to unbutton his shirt. Patience, love, he says, but there's heat in his voice that belies the calm words. When we're both bare-chested, he pauses to look at me, his dark eyes tracing over my form with such open affection that I feel exposed in the best way. "You're beautiful," he says simply. I flush even after all this time. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." He leans down, capturing my mouth again as his hands explore, sliding over my shoulders, down my sides, learning the landscape of my body like it's the first time. His touch is reverent, worshipful, making me feel cherished in ways I still sometimes can't believe are real. I arch into him as his fingers find my nipple, circling and teasing until I'm gasping against his mouth. He swallows my sounds, his own breathing growing heavier. "Need you," I whisper, reaching for the waistband of his trousers. "I'm right here," he promises, helping me with the fastenings. We shed the rest of our clothing slowly, taking time to appreciate, to touch, to reconnect after a long day of work and parenting and life. When we're finally naked together, skin to skin, I feel complete in a way that still amazes me. Ji-won reaches for the oil we keep in the bedside drawer, warming it between his palms. "Comfortable?" he asks, his hand gentle on my thigh. "Always with you." He prepares me with infinite patience, his slick fingers sliding inside me, stretching carefully. I've done this countless times, but he never rushes, never assumes. He watches my face, reading every expression, adjusting his touch to what I need. "More," I breathe when one finger becomes two, the stretch familiar and welcome. "Greedy tonight," he teases gently but adds a third finger, working me open with slow, deliberate movements that have me trembling. "For you," I manage. "Always for you." His fingers curve inside me, finding that spot that makes stars burst behind my eyes. I cry out softly, mindful of our sleeping children, and he smiles, pleased, loving mine. "Ready?" he asks, withdrawing his fingers. "Please." He positions himself, his length pressing against me, and our eyes meet in the lamplight. This moment, the moment before we join, always feels sacred somehow. A choosing renewed. "I love you," I whisper. "I love you too," he says and begins to press forward. The stretch is exquisite, that perfect edge between pleasure and pressure. I breathe through it, relaxing into the sensation as he fills me slowly, carefully, giving me time to adjust. "Okay?" he asks when he's fully seated inside me, his forehead pressed to mine. "Perfect," I breathe, wrapping my legs around his waist. "You always feel perfect." He begins to move, slow and deep, each thrust deliberate and measured. This isn't frantic or desperate. It's connection, communication spoken in sighs and touches rather than words. I run my hands over his back, feeling the flex of his muscles as he moves above me. He braces himself on one arm, using his free hand to caress my face, my chest, my sides, like he can't stop touching me. "Ryan," he breathes, my name a benediction on his lips. The pleasure builds gradually, a slow tide rather than a crashing wave. He adjusts his angle slightly, and I gasp as he begins hitting that sensitive spot inside me with each careful thrust. "There?" he asks, though he knows the answer. "Yes, there, please." He maintains that angle, that rhythm, patient and perfect. His hand wraps around my length, stroking in time with his movements, and the dual sensation makes me moan softly. "That's it, love," he murmurs. "Let me hear you." I let myself make noise, soft gasps and sighs, his name whispered like a prayer. He responds with his own sounds of pleasure, low groans that vibrate through his chest into mine. The pleasure spirals higher, tighter, my body tensing as I approach the edge. Ji-won seems to sense it, adjusting his rhythm, his hand moving faster on my length. "Come for me," he whispers against my ear. "I want to feel you." The permission, the desire in his voice sends me over. My release spills between us as I clench around him, pleasure washing through me in warm waves. I cry out his name, soft but intense, my fingers digging into his shoulders. "Beautiful," he breathes, watching my face as I come apart. "So beautiful." He continues moving, chasing his own release now, his thrusts becoming slightly deeper, more urgent. I hold him close, whispering encouragement, telling him how good he feels, how much I love him. His rhythm falters, and with a low groan muffled against my shoulder, he finds his completion. I feel his length pulse inside me, his whole body shuddering with the force of it. We stay connected for a long moment, breathing together, hearts racing in tandem. He lifts his head to kiss me, soft, sweet, tender. "I love you," he says again like he can't say it enough. "I love you too." Eventually, he withdraws gently, reaching for the tissues to clean us both. His touch remains tender, caring, as he wipes away the evidence of our lovemaking. Then he pulls me close, arranging us so we're spooned together, his arms secure around my waist. "Happy?" he asks, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. I lace my fingers through his, bringing his hand to my lips. So happy. More than I ever dreamed possible. Me too, he murmurs. Every day with you with our family, it's more than I deserve. I turn in his arms so I can see his face. You deserve everything, G1. Everything good. He smiles, that soft smile he reserves just for me, and kisses me gently. I already have everything good. Right here. We lie together in the quiet, listening to the distant sounds of the city and the soft breathing of our children in their nearby rooms. This is peace. This is home. This is love. Not the painful, conditional love I knew growing up, but the real thing. Unconditional, unwavering, true. Thank you, I whisper. For what? For saving me. For loving me. For giving me this life. G1 tightens his hold on me. You saved yourself, Ryan. You built this life with your own strength. I just had the privilege of being here for it. We saved each other, I correct softly. Yes, he agrees, kissing my forehead. We did. Outside, the city continues its endless motion, but here in our bed, in our home, time feels suspended. Just us, our love, our family. Everything that matters. I close my eyes, safe in my husband's arms, and drift towards sleep with a smile on my face. This is what happy endings feel like. This is what coming home means.